Hello, it's me again for another terrible video, but I want to say I hope anyone watching this is doing well and that you have a good Christmas and a brilliant New Year. So, yesterday I had a sort of last minute rheumatology appointment. They called me the day before saying they had a cancellation and made me an appointment. And you know what? I wasn't expecting any more medical appointments. Um, I'm sorry, I have terrible neighbours, but I wasn't expecting to have a specialist appointment at least until next year. Um, and I immediately start being anxious about the appointment, and I think to myself, I have to get this right this time because I've seen a rheumatologist before and tried to get my diagnosis, and I fell flat basically. Um, so I got my notebook out and I wrote down all my symptoms of the things that I've been dealing with for my whole life practically. So now I'm going to begin the sort of beginning of the story up until now. So I've been tired my whole life, and my younger sister actually told me that even as a child I was tired. I was sleepy. I'm a sleepy, sleepy little baby. But it only occurred to me when I was around 16, 17 that something wasn't right, and I didn't have the normal sort of bodily functions as most of the people around me. I'm only 24 now, and I should be in the prime of my life, but I am bedbound sometimes. And when I was 17, I was doing public services at college, and it got to a point of me being so um, burnt out and so fatigued, and I also kept getting tonsillitis. Like I'd have it every year from like the age of 13, so that's 4 whole years of having tonsillitis on and off. It would happen every like winter, fall kind of um, time. So it came to the new year, January, February time. I couldn't go to college anymore. I'll be honest, I was too tired. And the fatigue, and I'd also been in hospital for suicidal thoughts that sort of new year. Um, but I was exhausted, you know. I feel like life had absolutely kicked everything out of me, and the tonsillitis made me feel like I had fever, I had flu, and antibiotics didn't help. Um, and that was like around the time that we got this house and stopped being homeless as well, which is a whole other can of worms. Comment if you want to hear about it, but it's not that fucking interesting, to be honest with you. But at 17, doing public services, we had to do like physical education, exercise, and we do all kinds of different things. But this would have a really, really big strain on my joints, particularly my knees. My knees are little bastards, and I found that I couldn't sleep at night because my knees felt like they were on fire, and they hurt that much that it was really impacting my emotional well-being as well. You know, when you physically don't feel well, eventually it will have an impact on your mental health. So people with chronic illnesses, usually they suffer with low moods and anxiety, things like that. It just comes with the territory, really. But I was 17, I couldn't go to college anymore, and I could barely get out of bed for months. That whole summer was wasted. You know, I turned 18 and I was already done with life. I'd literally just become an adult. and my life was ending. My life had ended because I had dreams. I wanted to be a paramedic, and I did public services to learn how to discipline myself because I thought my problem was that I was lazy. And it's not. I'm not lazy. In fact, sometimes I'd be doing too much. But anyway, I still passed public services. I'd done enough of the work up until like January, February time that I was fine. And every day that I had to miss out on college, believe me, I was anxious about it. I was worrying and I felt bad, which sort of had a knock-on effect on the fatigue as well, because then I was depressed, I had tonsillitis, and I was really, really tired. But I learned from a YouTuber about chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was like, wait a second, that sounds like my life. And so I started to do research. Um, and then over the years, it progressively got worse to the point where I was having migraines every day. Starting the beginning of 2020, I just started having constant migraine activity. I have constant aura, and if you don't know what aura is, I'm not going to explain it because I waffle on too much, but Google it. Google migraines, have a look. It's not fucking fun. It's not fun and games. I'm not having a laugh here. This isn't good. And it became my everyday life. And that's when the brain fog really started to kick in. It felt kind of like my brain had turned into soup. And at some points, it feels like my brain was boiling because migraines are much, much worse than a headache. So if you have headaches and you're like, oh, no, I know, Alex, you fucking don't. For me, I think what I have is ocular migraine, so they affect my vision, and they're usually above one of my eyes. And honestly, it feels like someone's stabbing my eye with a fork or a knife. Just anything sharp that you could stab into someone's fucking eyes. That's how it felt. That's how it feels. I had a migraine yesterday even, and I just tried to sleep it off because I couldn't be bothered with the medications that I have to take. Now, I've cleaned up my medication, so I'm just going to show you what I have to take for this nightmare of a life that I'm living. I'm on 3 different medications for just the migraines. This is the first one they put me on, which I'd already been on before to help with anxiety when I was like 13, 14, maybe even 15. I have bad memory. That's one of the symptoms, is not having good memory. But I'd already taken these before, so I knew what to expect. And you know what? This leads on to something else as well. I've been in and out of hospital, mostly with infections, because my immune system is like a puppy that's being neglected. That's all I can describe it as. It's terrible. My immunity is really bad. But so I get infections a lot. I end up in hospital because I get so unwell sometimes. In fact, I've been in hospital this past week 2 times. That's just my fucking life now, and it's always around Christmas, New Year's, I get sick, I go to hospital. But anyways, on one of these hospital visits, I was told that my heartbeat wasn't normal. And, I discussed things with my family, and my dad said, oh, it runs in the family. Apparently, a slight arrhythmia runs in my family. Anyways, years later, I had proper testing. I had a heart monitor for a week, and it turns out that my heart beats a little extra. I have an extra beat from the bottom chambers of my heart every now and again, which can cause me to have palpitations, which is another symptom of this horrible disorder. And the palpitations are something I've had for a very, very long time. And with having anxiety as well, as young as I started to experience it, like I was a little child, I tell you, and I was anxious still. But yeah, I've had palpitations for my whole life. I've been tired for my whole life. And then I take these. There. Did I put my personal info? No, this doesn't have personal info, it just has my name, luckily. But I take these. My dosage was recently increased because of the endometriosis, but originally they put me on these for the endo as well, just a couple years back now. And, you know, it did fuck all for the endo, but my migraines, better. A lot better than just being on these. At first, these did help because migraines are sort of when pressure builds up in your brain, blood pressure builds up in your brain. And like a seizure, it's like your brain is firing on all cylinders. And honestly, if you try to sleep a migraine off, it will be really difficult because your brain is just going 100 miles an hour. But anyways, these really help with the migraines. I have to take them every night, and the endo surgeon recently increased it to see if it has a difference on the endo pain. And what those are like nerve pain treatments. And I do suffer with nerve pains. I've had nerve pain since about 2021, 2022. I started experiencing nerve pains, and that got me worried, you know. And that's when I was referred to a neurologist. And I've seen the neurologist 2 times as well. And I don't think she's a very nice woman. She's not a very nice doctor, but I think she did everything she had to. She referred me for an MRI, which told me that I have tumours on my spine. And they're not cancerous, so don't fucking worry, but they are painful. So, along with, you know, being in constant pain because of chronic fatigue syndrome, there's also 2 points on my spine, one up here and one down here, which will be complete bastards to me sometimes. It's really hard to like do shopping and stuff because of the one at the top of my spine, because when I'm holding heavy bags, which usually isn't a problem for me, I'm quite strong, but it starts to sort of make the tumour ache, and as time goes on, I'm still carrying the bags. It just gets worse and worse to the point where I find it completely and utterly unbearable. And lastly, for the migraines, oh wait, no, I grabbed the wrong ones. I take something called amitriptyl, and those are for when I'm having a really bad day and I'm in full-on migraine mode. You know, it's really hurting. I want to scream. I want to cry because it feels that bad. That's when I take the amitriptyl. And within 2 hours, it starts to work. It takes a long time to work, and that's why I couldn't do jury duty when I was invited. I can't remember how long ago that was, to be honest. But when I was still 19 is when I started talking to doctors a lot more to get my diagnosis for myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is the government name for chronic fatigue syndrome. It's like the official term. You know, I've been trying since 2019 to get a diagnosis, and a lot of times it felt like I was hitting a brick wall, and in the end the neurologist was like, I can't diagnose chronic fatigue syndrome, you'll have to see a rheumatologist, which I'd already seen a rheumatologist and he didn't diagnose me and said I might have something called chronic pain syndrome, which is you experience a trauma, usually a physical trauma, like say you fall over and you broke your arm, but your bones have healed and everything, but it still hurts. That's chronic pain syndrome. But chronic fatigue syndrome is sort of, it affects everything in your whole life, you know. And in 2021, I found out that having a job wasn't something I could do, and that was due to the brain fog, and I felt like I was becoming learning disabled. I don't know if, I'd be able to get that diagnosis if I was tested, but I don't care either way. If I'm disabled, learning disabled at least, it's not bothering me because I never went to uni. I never got that far in life. My dreams died at 17 when I got really ill. And for most of the past few years, I've been talking to medical professionals and trying to get answers. And eventually, yesterday, a rheumatologist came in after one of his younger doctors went out and got him. He was like an experienced guy. He came in, he was in a suit and everything, he was professional. He asked me a few questions. I answered his questions. It was mostly about pain, and then he was like, well, you can say that you have chronic fatigue syndrome now. So I got my diagnosis, and that's all I wanted to say really, but I ramble on. Nothing I say makes sense. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if I don't answer your comment completely, I might post a YouTube short about it, so keep an eye out for that. Subscribe if you find this interesting. Subscribe if you have chronic fatigue syndrome. Like the video if it was any fucking good, which I don't think it was. And, as I said in the beginning, have a great Christmas and a great New Year. I know I will, because I feel like I've won the lottery.